Welcome to Buddha's in Your Landfill. It's Sunday morning, and my wife is watching CBS Sunday morning, and I'm doing my Sunday morning show. So I want you to think about or what I want you to see is that as I give these talks, there is a thread, there is I hope a simple message, there is a single point that I keep coming back to that draws me back to it, that draws my talks back to that. And that is the idea of ground zero, or the place of balance, where the rubber of the wheel hits the road. Yesterday we talked about the wheel being a wheel of life spinning. We're on the treadmill, and we want our life to move, but we're going in a Groundhog Day. And when we discover how to get the wheel to hit the road, we feel that. It's just like in a car. When the rubber hits the road, you move. So, I have an itch on my nose. So I wanted to talk about something's going on in our house. So my wife has a craft shop upstairs. We have a big house, a big old Victorian house. She has a craft shop upstairs, and it's always it's like building sandcastles at the ocean with children, and the tide is coming in and tide is going out. So there's always the struggle between getting it organized and then relaxing, and then the incoming stuff keeps coming in, and the next thing you know, the shop is all disorganized. So right now we're going through a big push to organize it. We've got a new drafting table, and there's energy to organize it, and we all know this. Our houses, our homes are the dance or the playground where order and disorder is constantly pushing and pulling. Usually with partners in a marriage, in a household, one partner is more organized than the other, so there's this constant pick up this stuff, or parents with children, the disorganized and the order. So all this dance between order and disorder is exhausting, and we don't really understand it. We try to separate it. I love watching the British mysteries, and one of them we watch because it's run for so long was Midsummer Mysteries, and it takes an idyllic little English town, and there's always disorder. So in the British mystery, the murder is disorder. Oh my God, a murder, and everybody runs around trying to restore order. But you notice about the British civilization is one of imposing order. The English garden is that order imposed on nature. So nature is off, is wild and crazy, but the garden is neatly clipped and geometric, you see, in this classical order that creates a little island of order in nature. And so nature is the barbarian, is the external force that's constantly pushing into if anyone has a garden, you know what this means. The nature is constantly pushing against your order. Like right now, this spring is coming, and I have to go get mulch, truckloads of mulch to bring order back to the definition of the yard. Otherwise, the definition of order dissolves. So there's this conflict between what we define as order against the opposite forces of order. And as always, there's a point where if you give up, you can't maintain this constant force, pressure against the incoming tide. So you relax and give up, and the next thing you know, you're overwhelmed with it again. Particularly in our house, the invaders to our order is junk mail, stuff coming in, people bringing you stuff, gifts, trinkets, little things, salt and pepper shakers, all different things people give you. What do? You put them out, you put them away, and then you have emotional attachment. Oh, we can't put away that, can't throw that out, somebody gave it to us, so forth. So you have this constant incoming and the constant pushback of order you know, and then you collapse, and then it comes in over, and that goes on and on. This is very common. So I wanted to look today at exactly what's going on here in the context of Zen and Dharma and the practice that that activates and animates me. So I drew this up as kind of like a diagram between the order and the looking at it as tide, tide. So there's the order of bringing order as an incoming tide, or incoming or outgoing, whichever way you go. Outgoing would be pushing order out, and then the incoming of order coming back in. So you get this push-pull of order versus disorder. And we perceive this as being separate. I'm order, you, my spouse, the world, the weeds, the barbarians, the immigrants, the Muslims, this is the incoming disorder that I have to push back, you see, and build a wall, the bigger wall, you see. So I have to push back to maintain order. So it's kind of like we're in this order control center. And who's in there but me? I'm in this order control center. And I'm fighting against the invasion of disorder, chaos, loss of center, you see, loss of this control, which is loss of self, which is loss of a place in the world. In other words, when we create order, the idea behind creating order is that I'm going to create a permanent place for me to live that I've created. So I'm kind of like God in the sense that, or old Yahweh, I'm going to create order, create the law, and then that will be the garden and I'll live in it, you see, and I'll be permanent. So this idea of the invading disorder attacks my sense of permanence. Now here's the rub, you see, because life is impermanent. Life is always changing. So when I create an island of order, I'm really creating a wall or order against life itself. If you have kids, you see this very obviously. The parent wants to create order and keep everything in place, and the kids are constantly leaving stuff around. And then if they see that they can push your button, they're going to play the disorder against your order. So what we're interested in here is looking at this from a different view. So if life is disorder, but it's also order. You notice that nature in the raw is very organized. Everything fits. The wolves, the chipmunks, the bison, everything is an integrated order that rises up out of itself. There is no externally imposed order on nature except by what man does, you see. So man comes in and externally imposes an order, and now we have to maintain that order as a permanent order while nature is constantly changing and creating its own organic order. So there is a difference here between the law being imposed and an organic order. This is really the difference between the Eastern and Western paradigms or traditions. The Western tradition coming out of the Greeks and out of old Yahweh of Genesis is that the law is imposed from an external force onto nature or man or civilization. This externally, the king or the god imposes the law on the children, on mankind, on civilization, society, and on nature. In the East, the model is that God and creation are one, so that the law grows organically out of nature, out of life. So the law is constantly changing as the conditions of life change, you see. So you can see these two different ways of view. Both are good, both are valid, but they need to understand and work together. So I think this is really a crisis in our civilization now, is where change wants to create new order out of the change, out of the new conditions, and we keep trying to impose the old order on it to hold back the tide. So we want to restore America means restoring order as it was in the past, rather than creating a new order out of the changing tides and the changing mix of people and conditions, you see. So there is a war between order and disorder going on, but we really need to look at it not only from without, but more importantly from in our own life, in our own everyday life, in our mind, you see, because this is also a paradigm for our own mind, where the ego wants to restore order to its own chaotic mind and not have these negative thoughts and feelings and not have this disorder coming in, which we perceive as an attack on my self-image and the way things should be and the way my life should be, you see. So I'm constantly at war with the invasion from what I perceive as disorder. You could put it in a religious context, say, well, we're under attack by the devil or some external force or alien or barbarians or something. It plays out in so many ways, but it's fundamentally a misunderstanding of the fact that order and disorder are really the same thing. So to put this basically into something that we can apply is that the next time you feel that your order is under attack by some disorder, which is the other or your husband or your wife or something, the kids or your job or whatever, when you basically understand that this is fundamentally a feeling, it's an unpleasant feeling, it's a little fear feeling of losing control of your order, but it's a feeling. And the feeling is you. So if the way to stop the war between order and disorder is to accept disorder as being part of your order. In other words, you integrate it. You accept it, like what Jesus said, you love your enemy. Well, if the enemy is disorder, you can't win by fighting disorder because the disorder is you. You see, when we divide our mind into the reality of our mind into order that I want, that's future, I want to have this order, but life or this disorder won't let me have it, so I'm at war with it, you see. Then I give in and have the disorder, and then I feel guilty and I push it back, you see. It's this seesaw going on and on. The only way out, you see, is to see that I am the disorder and the order. The order and the disorder is me. So that makes it whole, you see. If I just accept the disorder as my feeling of disorder, that disorder really isn't there. Life is always in order. The world, nature, reality is always in order. There's always an integrating order going on, but I can't see it as long as I divide it into my order and that order, that disorder, you see. So when I relax the fight against disorder, when I relax the resistance against the socks on the floor, oh, they're blaming it, left you. Can't you keep your socks out? You know, it's just socks. If I just say, wait, what's the truth here? It's just socks. It's not the end of the world. It's just socks, you see. Or if the cat poops on the floor and you step in it, it's just poop. It's just this, you see. It's not, I got to get rid of the cat. It's just this. So if I can just see the disorder as just this, without adding the great story or the cosmic war against disorder and the invasion barbarians and the loss of civilization and yada, yada, yada. If it's just this, then a creative response comes up when disorder and order become one. When order and disorder become one, the response is going to be creative and joyous, because you're going to use the disorder to create a new order. We can't create a new order unless we use the disorder that we've got. Remember that. And creating a new order is creating a new world in which you can live at peace with disorder. Think about that. If we want to live at peace with disorder, we have to realize that disorder and order are really one. They're not two. And when they become one, that is a creative response, and that is going to be a creative idea that creates a new world for you to live in, a happy world. So let that be your Buddha in the landfill today. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.